Everyone laughed when Mia rolled into the restaurant in her wheelchair. Everyone except him. The blind date was meant to be a cruel prank, arranged by people who never saw her as anything but the broken girl. She had hesitated before agreeing to come, her friend convincing her that maybe it was time to believe in love again. But as soon as she entered, she felt the weight of mocking eyes, whispers echoing across the room, and a wave of shame she'd fought for years to bury. Then she saw Ethan. He wasn't laughing, he wasn't staring, he simply stood up, smiled, and walked toward her as if she were the only person in that crowded room. "You must be Mia," he said softly, pulling out a chair beside her. Not across the table beside her. It wasn't pity she saw in his eyes, it was respect. His little daughter peeked shyly from behind him, holding a crumpled crayon drawing. "Daddy said you're a princess," she whispered, her tiny voice melting the cold silence around them. And for the first time in years, Mia believed it. Dinner was quiet at first. Mia was cautious, still unsure if this man was part of the joke. But Ethan's calm tone, his gentle patience, slowly disarmed her. He asked about her work, her dreams, and the stories behind her smile. He never mentioned her wheelchair, not once. Instead, he told her about his daughter, Lily, and how she lost her mother 2 years ago. "She doesn't talk to strangers," he said, glancing at the little girl coloring beside them, "but she drew you a crown before we even came here." Mia's chest tightened. For so long, people had looked at her with either sympathy or discomfort, but this man and his child looked at her with something new, a warmth. As the evening went on, the noise of laughter from the other tables faded. The cruel pranksters had lost interest when they realized their joke hadn't broken her up. It had brought something unexpected to life. Ethan and Mia talked for hours, and when the restaurant began closing, he walked her to her car. "Can I see you again?" he asked, not with hesitation but quiet certainty. Mia looked at her reflection in the car window of her wheelchair, her tired eyes, her uncertain heart, and then at the man who made her feel visible again. "I'd like that," she whispered. Days turned into weeks, and their friendship blossomed into something deeper. Ethan began visiting her art studio, where she taught children to paint. Lily became her favorite student, always leaving with her fingers covered in color and her heart full of laughter. Ethan admired the way Mia found beauty in imperfection, how she turned every limitation into art. One afternoon, while helping her clean brushes, he said, "You don't let anything stop you, do you?" She smiled faintly. "I stopped letting fear win a long time ago." Still, as their bond grew stronger, so did Mia's fear of losing it. She'd been abandoned before by people who couldn't see past her chair, by those who pitied her instead of loving her. One night, after a long walk by the lake, Ethan reached for her hand. "I don't care what the world says," he murmured. "You're everything I didn't know I needed." Tears filled her eyes, but she pulled her hand away. "You deserve someone whole," she said, her voice breaking. "Someone who can run with your daughter, not someone who slows you down." Ethan's face softened. "Mia, you're not slowing us down, you're helping us breathe again." But fate tested them sooner than either expected. Mia's health began to decline. The pain in her spine returned stronger, and doctors recommended a risky surgery. She tried to hide it, but Ethan noticed. When he found her crying in her studio, surrounded by unfinished paintings, she confessed, "If I go through with it, I might not make it. And if I don't a broken bar, I'll lose that little movement I have left." Ethan knelt beside her wheelchair, his voice trembling. "Then we face it together. I lost one person I love, it. I won't lose another without a fight." She protested, saying it was too expensive, that he had a daughter to raise. But he had already made up his mind. He sold his car, worked double shifts, and spent nights researching doctors. "You don't have to do this," she whispered one night, exhausted from pain and guilt. "I do," he said gently, "because you taught me what real strength looks like." The surgery day came, and as she was wheeled into the operating room, Ethan held her hand tightly. "Come back to me, princess," he whispered, repeating his daughter's words from their first meeting. Hours passed. The surgery was long and uncertain. Ethan sat in the hospital hallway, clutching Lily's drawing of a smiling princess in a wheelchair wearing a crown. When the doctor finally emerged, his heart nearly stopped. "She made it," the doctor said softly. Relief washed over Ethan like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. He rushed into her room, tears blurring his vision. Mia was pale, weak, but alive. "I told you not to wait," she murmured with a faint smile. "And miss my miracle?" he replied, gently brushing her hair from her face. Recovery was slow, filled with pain and frustration, but Ethan and Lily were there every step of the way. They brought her laughter, flowers, and messy drawings that covered her hospital wall. One evening, as she sat by the window watching the sunset, Lily climbed into her lap and whispered, "Daddy says love is when you don't give up." Mia hugged her tightly, tears streaming down her cheeks. "He's right, sweetheart," she said softly. "Love doesn't give up, it grows stronger." Months later, Mia returned to her art studio. Her hands were weaker, her movements slower, but her spirit burned brighter than ever. She painted a new piece, a little girl in a wheelchair holding a crown, with sunlight shining behind her. When Ethan saw it, he smiled. "She looks familiar." Mia laughed. "She's every girl who was told she wasn't enough." On the day of her first exhibition after recovery, people gathered around her paintings, inspired by the story behind each stroke. But Mia's eyes searched for only two faces: Ethan and Lily, standing proudly in the front row. When the crowd applauded, she looked at them and whispered, "This isn't my story alone, it's ours." Later that night, as they closed the gallery, Ethan took her hand again the same way he did that first night in the restaurant. "Everyone laughed when you rolled in," he said quietly, "but they didn't know they were watching the beginning of something beautiful." She smiled, tears glistening. "They meant it as a joke," she whispered, "but it became the reason I started believing in love again." In that moment, me understood that life wasn't about walking tall, it was about finding someone who stood beside you, even when the world turned its back. Ethan and Lily didn't just give her love, they gave her a family, a reason to keep dreaming, and the courage to never doubt her worth again. And in the quiet glow of that night, surrounded by colors, laughter, and love, Mia realized she was never the broken girl. She was the miracle that healed them all. Weeks turned into moments Mia never wanted to end. Every morning began with Ethan's voice and ended with Lily's laughter. For the first time in years, Mia didn't feel invisible. Ethan didn't treat her like a burden, he treated her like hope. He listened to her stories, laughed at her jokes, and looked at her as if she were capable of anything. She became part of their small world, a painting with Lily, baking together, watching sunsets through the big living room window. Yet deep down, Mia feared it was all temporary, that sooner or later he'd see her chair and realize what the world always told her, that she wasn't enough. She loved him quietly, secretly, afraid that saying it out loud might make it disappear. But Ethan already knew. He saw it in the way she smiled when he entered the room, in the way she'd lean closer when she laughed. Then one cold evening, everything changed. Mia collapsed in her studio. The pain in her back had returned, sharper and heavier than before. Ethan rushed her to the hospital, his heart racing. The doctors explained her spine had weakened and she needed surgery, risky, expensive, and uncertain. She tried to stay calm, but fear gnawed at her. Later that night, as she lay in the hospital bed, she told Ethan to go home. "You deserve someone whole," she whispered through tears. "Someone who can walk beside you, not someone who holds you back." Ethan knelt beside her wheelchair, his eyes glistening. "You are whole, Mia," he said softly. "You're the reason my daughter laughs again. You didn't hold me back, you helped us move forward." But Mia couldn't stop the guilt. "You've already lost so much, Ethan. Don't lose more because of me." He shook his head, holding her hand tightly. "I'm not losing anything. I'm choosing you. And I'll keep choosing you." He meant every word. That night, when the doctor explained the cost and risks, Ethan didn't hesitate. He sold his car, emptied his savings, and even took extra shifts just to cover the bills. When Mia found out, she tried to protest, but he silenced her gently. "Some people show love with words," he said quietly, signing the papers. "I'll show it with everything I have." Mia couldn't hold back her tears. No one had ever fought for her like this. The day of the surgery arrived, and the hospital felt colder than usual. Ethan stayed by her side until the nurses wheeled her into the operating room. Lily, holding a stuffed bunny, whispered, "Come back soon, Miss Mia. Daddy can't cook without you." Mia smiled weakly, brushing her hair back from the girl's face. "I'll come back, sweetheart, I promise." As the doors closed, Ethan whispered to her, "You're not alone. We're right here." His words echoed in her mind as she closed her eyes, trusting him more than she trusted fate. The hours felt endless. Ethan paced the hallway, staring at the clock, holding Lily close. He replayed every moment they had shared, the first smile, the first touch, the way she looked at him as if she still couldn't believe he cared. When the doctor finally emerged, Ethan's heart nearly stopped. "She made it," the doctor said with a tired smile. "The surgery went well. It'll be a long recovery, but she's strong." Ethan exhaled shakily, tears slipping down his cheeks. Lily squeezed his hand. "I told you she's a princess," she said softly. When Mia woke up, the first thing she saw was Ethan asleep beside her bed, his head resting on his arm. His hand was still wrapped around hers. "You stayed," she whispered. His eyes opened, tired but warm. "I told you," he murmured, smiling faintly. "I'm not going anywhere." That simple promise broke whatever walls she had left. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was fighting alone. Recovery was slow and painful. There were days she wanted to give up, days when her hands trembled too much to hold the brush, and nights when the pain brought her to tears. But Ethan was always there, helping her stretch, making her laugh, reminding her that progress wasn't about speed, but about courage. Lily became her little helper, decorating her wheelchair with stickers and flowers. "Now it looks like a queen's chair," the child said proudly. Mia laughed, feeling something she hadn't in years of belonging. One afternoon, as they sat in the garden, Ethan placed a small photo in her lap. It was a picture of the three of them, him, Lily, and Maya smiling in front of her studio. "This," he said quietly, "is my family." She looked up at him, speechless. As on a broken bar he shook his head. "You gave us life again, Mia." "Before you," Lily barely spoke, "I was just surviving, not living." "You changed that, so please, don't ever think you're not enough." Tears filled her eyes. She reached for his hand and whispered, "I don't know what I did to deserve you." He smiled. "You loved without expecting anything back. That's enough." Months passed, and Mia slowly regained strength. She began painting again, creating pieces inspired by her journey out of pain, hope, and love that healed. One day, Ethan and Lily surprised her with a small gallery show, displaying her new artwork. When she entered the hall, her eyes widened. Each painting told a piece of her story, one of resilience, courage, and rebirth. But at the center hung her most personal work, a painting of a man holding the hand of a woman in a wheelchair, their shadows forming a single heart. The caption beneath read, "Love doesn't stand above you, it stands beside." As the crowd admired her art, Ethan approached her quietly. "Do you know why I love this painting the most?" he asked. "Because it's us," she replied softly. "No," he said, smiling. "Because it reminds me that love isn't about fixing what's broken up. It's about believing nothing was broken to begin with." Mia looked up at him, her heart full. "You're right," she whispered. "Love isn't about walking. It's about standing by someone." Later that night, when everyone had left, Ethan wheeled her outside. The city lights shimmered around them. The same lights that once made her feel small now seemed to welcome her home. "Do you ever think about how it started?" she asked. He chuckled. "A prank, wasn't it? Funny how something cruel became the best thing that ever happened to me." She smiled, eyes glistening. "They laughed at me that night." Ethan looked at her, his voice steady. "They did, but the joke's on them, Mia. Because that night, I found my forever." Mia leaned her head against his shoulder, feeling his heartbeat beneath the quiet night. For years, she had been searching for acceptance, for a reason to believe she was more than her scars. Now, she realized she had found Bota in the love of a man who never saw her as less, and in a child who called her princess. As the wind brushed gently through her hair, she whispered, "I finally understand what love means." Ethan smiled. "What does it mean?" She looked up, her voice trembling with emotion. "It means never standing alone." In that moment, she knew she was no longer the broken girl. She was a woman who had been loved back to life.